Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Pro Wrestling Inside and Out, and yes, we are back on. And as always, some kind of technical difficulties always going on. But uh, but hey, we'll try to get through this. Jack, before we get started with talking 1980 WWF, we'll talk January and February on this video. But Ric Flair is in the news. Went into a bar and got through out of there. Did you happen to see the video
I
of this?
did. I did. Yeah,
Um,
he went online after it happened. I guess it was yesterday. At some point, I'm sure pretty early, but he really downed this pizzeria place, and I don't remember the name of it right now. But just said that he was very disrespected. That he recommended that nobody ever goes to give them business because they were so disrespectful to him that he had spent uh, $1,500 there, and then they treat him the way they treat him. So obviously as it turns out, Rick was pretty inebriated, was mad because they cut him off, and then during his drunken tirade, gave the waitress $1,000 tip because he liked her.
if you've not watched it, it's all over YouTube, Facebook. Get over there and see it because it's a very interesting video of Ric Flair. I can't. I thought it was pretty interesting that the guy said that when he told him, "Hey, you want to step outside?" and the guy said, "Well, I'm on the clock." And I don't know that he heard what he said because he said the block. Maybe he didn't know he said clock. But then there's a guy stands up next to him. Well, you want to go out with me and go out to the market lot? But when Flair kept on telling him, "Hey, listen, what are you saying? What are you saying?" The guy kind of shut up. I think he rethought. Well, man, maybe I don't want to go out with him.
Yeah, I think he saw that Rick was so inebriated that he was not catching what anybody was saying. Rick was so into his head. Now, to add onto this little ordeal, um, his son-in-law, what's his name? Conrad.
Conrad, yes.
Yeah, Conrad posted on his X account that he would never ever do another podcast with Ric Flair. So people started questioning him about it, and he said, "Look," he said, "I love him. He's my daddy-in-law." But he said it's like pulling teeth trying to get a podcast with him. He said he'll just basically no shows, and they have to reschedule. And he said there's a lot that goes into these podcasts, as we know. And he said for him to just blow it off time and time again, he said I'm not saying he might not drop in on a podcast, but he said I'll never do one centered around him again.
Wow.
Well, he
So
could be very busy at the bar and at the pizza place.
yeah, yeah.
Could be too
Did
busy.
you think you really spent $1,500 at this place?
Well, he had from what I could tell, he had a large entourage of family and friends, and I'm sure it was probably more Wendy's side of the family than his. So I could see a $500 bill, if you're just ordering, and then on top of it, now he's drinking like a fish. So and drinks at any restaurant, it's not going to be cheap. So yeah, I could see him spending 500, and then he was he gave the girl, the waitress, the $1,000 tip, even though she was arguing with him about it. He insisted. So
Very interesting today, though. I got to watch that earlier, and well, I had heard about it. I think Rodney, I think you sent me the information on it, so I had to go see it because I knew somebody was going to have a video of that. That's kind of sad, though, ain't it? Rick is really making himself look bad on so many different occasions now.
Yeah.
And all he remembers is things that he did outside of wrestling, I've noticed, at the bars and stuff. I'm not for sure he even knows what he did inside the ring. I just don't think he does. Because all he ever wants to talk about is what happened at the bars. And that's sad
Yeah.
that he don't even care about his wrestling career, which is sad. Rodney, anything going on before we start talking 1980 WWF?
Well, yet again, I must send out my regards to AJ Styles. AJ was talking about his potential retirement and how that it is terrible that he has to be away from his family to have to work. It's not like that people across the nation and around the world have to leave every single day to go to work, to be away from their family, to make a living, and of course to pay the rent, pay the bills, pay the taxes. They pay these kind of things. And he's the only one. He's the only one. I don't understand what kind of culture that's going on in the WWE. We've had Gunther, he's out complaining, and now AJ Styles, his potential retirement. Apparently, he doesn't like to do jobs. Let's figure that. And really, did anybody actually think he was going to be the new WWE champion at Backlash? And we will discuss. Well, you're going to see the difference between how Vince McMahon Sr., Vince McMahon Jr., takes care of the situation when Bob Backlund's the WWF champion, and now what they've done. Basically, they blew everything off at WrestleMania, and what do they have? Cody working against nobody. It won't be long until he begins to ring post, which will probably be just as exciting. But now he has no opponents. That's where you're at. That's where you book yourself in the corner. And he has no opponents. Be better off to have left it with Roman, him still being against whoever.
Is Roman even there?
No, he's
No,
off for an undisclosed period of time.
I saw
Rock
something.
is a Rock there?
Nope, he's gone also.
No,
Wow. So you had all that build up for those people, and then you had nothing behind it, which is
nothing.
Well, now they are continuing the bloodline story, and it actually looks like they're building for Roman to come back, but as a babyface.
ah.
So
But the only problem is those other people just ain't Roman Reigns. So sad. I mean, the Usos are just not a Roman Reigns, or they're not The Rock. On top of that,
well, that's the other thing is that the from what I've gathered, the heel faction now, which is Solo Sokoa and Haku's two sons. Uh, when Roman comes back about the same time Rock does,
okay,
and Rock is going to side with the heels,
I got you.
whereas the Usos, they're going to make up. So it's two of them, and now they need somebody else. So Roman comes back as babyface, and Paul has been doing some of the best. The little things. This is what I was telling somebody the other day. The little things are every bit as important as the big things. And Paul has been telling a little bit of a story just by the way he looks at Solo. They did a deal after the pay per view the other night where all three of the heel bloodline is walking by Jay, and they stop, they look at him, they walk on by. Paul's bringing up the rear, and he stops and he looks at Jay, and you could almost see it in his, you could see it in his face, where he's saying, "Help me. I don't want to be here."
Is Brock Lesnar back?
Not
No.
yet.
Okay, because I didn't know. I'd seen some stories that he was going to come back. So evidently, all that stuff he got in trouble with is.
They have mentioned him a time or two. So whatever heat he had is slowly dying away, and or we know they're not going to mention you if you've got serious heat. So yeah, it's probably going to be more towards the end of summer, maybe SummerSlam, before he comes back.
All right, now it's time for us to talk WWF 1980. We're going to be probably doing a couple of videos. We're going to look at January and February right now. And it's kind of the year in review, the highlights, not everything that WWF did in 1980, but one of the biggest things they did, and I'll read this first and then we'll discuss it. In January, throughout the month on WWF TV, there were interesting happenings between Bruno Sammartino and his protege, Larry Zbyszko, for the weeks leading up to the new year. Sammartino, now working as a commentator, wished to interview Zbyszko, but received no response. Vince asked Zbyszko a week later why he had been ignoring an interview request from Bruno Sammartino. And Larry stated that although he respected Bruno, he wanted a scientific exhibition match with him. Sick of labeling, he didn't want to be labeled as Bruno's protege. Zbyszko wanted to prove to the people what he was made of. Bruno immediately declined to face him. McMahon led another Zbyszko interview on the next TV show, and Larry said if Bruno refuses to face him to prove himself, then he would retire. Bruno appeared and accepted the match, but clearly stated that he feels like Larry is a brother, probably more like a son, and his goal was not to beat Zbyszko. Rodney, do you remember this taking place
Oh,
in
absolutely. It was
1980?
it was absolutely beautiful, beautifully set up. Vince McMahon was doing the commentary during that match. Absolutely outstanding build up, and the execution was flawless. Just one of the most memorable events ever between Bruno Sammartino and Larry Zbyszko.
Jack, was did you have you able to see any of this?
Yes, I did. Yeah, it's probably one of the best angles of that time period. You can argue the quality of matches between North, South, and everywhere else. That's irrelevant. The fact is that there was no bigger superstar than Bruno Sammartino, and Larry had gotten that rub, but he still wasn't accepted as that top level. I think he'd been tag champ several times, but it was just kind of like that glass ceiling was there. Yeah, you were trained by Bruno, but you're not Bruno. And so they painted this picture so well that even after all these years, we don't have to look at something to remember how great it was.
It was really good, and Larry Zbyszko did this. He did this so well, and you got to look at the way they did Bruno Sammartino. He was a legend in that area, and never did Bruno Sammartino retire, and he got beat 62 times before he retired. He retired on top, and it was so well done that it drew an incredible amount of money everywhere they went. I know that Larry Zbyszko, during this point in time, I think got into a little bit of problems during this time because I think he kept on holding them up for some money during during that point in time. But I guess he felt like, hey, it's going to drop because it did drop
Yeah.
everywhere they went. It drew. The match was incredible. If you've never seen the match, it's available on YouTube. It's probably on the WWE network. I would gather it's on there. I don't even know. Is there a WWE network anymore?
Yeah, they still show a lot of the old stuff on there.
I didn't even know if they were still
Yeah, it's,
filming
this
that.
this particular match is also available on YouTube. I've seen it multiple times.
But he gets disgusted, and he actually takes one of those wooden chairs and just beats Bruno Sammartino until he's bleeding. And the way they did it was so well because they made people feel so sorry for Bruno, and everybody knew Bruno was going to kick Larry Zbyszko's tail. It worked perfectly. Anything else
And
we
it
need to talk
really
about there?
it really made up to this point. Larry was not a star. This made Larry Zbyszko a star right here.
But he leaves not. I mean, soon after this thing. He's gone. Because I think at this point, I think Vince McMahon Senior. I don't think there's really a senior and junior, but Vince McMahon Senior still owned the company. I don't believe that Vince McMahon Jr. had bought the company as of yet. On the 5th of January at the Civic Center in Baltimore, everyone believes that Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant wrestled each other for the very first time at WrestleMania 3. But I hate to tell, even WWE to a certain extent wants people to believe that.
Oh yeah.
And it's in their own archives. Hulk Hogan faced Andre the Giant in their first known match. It ended as a draw. But see, Hogan and Andre wrestled each other in Dothan, Alabama. I think probably during this, almost during the same time period.
Yeah, that same match was brought to Atlanta as well
Yeah. So,
with
what
the
do you
same
think?
angle.
What?
They showed the same angle where Hogan hit him with the Hogan hammer, loaded Hogan hammer Andre, and bested him up, and then they showed that on Atlanta TV. And actually, Fred Blassie was in the studio, and people loved. He was over in Atlanta, Freddie Blassie, and he talked about Hulk Hogan against Andre the Giant coming up the Omni.
A
Did it
great
draw?
interview too, if you remember. So different than what the other interviews that were being done at the time in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Just tremendous. Jack, I got to ask you, why do you think the WWE wants people to believe that WrestleMania 3 was the first time they met each other?
Well, I think that was just Vince's idea that it would draw better if everybody thought it was the first time. Because
Even
honestly, the business had exploded so much at that point that Vince saw this as, we've probably got 25% of the old crowd that still follows, but we're reaching people now we've never reached before. So boom, here we are, a lot of young people, so they wouldn't know the history.
you would think they would they could have even showed that history and made it even bigger. But I think they wanted to make Andre the
Well,
Giant
and,
be
and,
this.
and let's remember that Hogan was the heel during these
Yes, this
initial
is true.
matches, and they never wanted to present him as bad guy.
This is true. All right, on the 12th of January, a sellout crowd of 19,568 people at the Philadelphia Spectrum witnessed the match Lou Albano against Pat Patterson. And this is a feud that carried over from 1979. Got to remember they do things in 6 months time frames in WWF. It was a short match with the Intercontinental Champion Patterson winning via countout in under 4 minutes. I remember the Lou Albano Patterson feud, and I remember the matches, and I always thought to myself, why are they putting Lou in the ring? But Lou was really an accomplished wrestler,
Yeah.
but he just had so much weight on him that it was like he was going down in stages at the time. At this point in time, Rodney, what do you remember the Lou Albano Pat Patterson feud?
It lasted 4 minutes. That's
You remember you could watch all these shows
all of them.
on
Yeah,
cable television back in the day. We would
yeah.
watch the Philadelphia Spectrum shows, the Madison Square Garden shows. We would watch them in Atlanta. And we always wondered why people paid to see most of it. Some of it was good. That was good. I remember seeing that. I remember Lou Albano did bleed in this match. I'm pretty sure.
I believe just about he bled in every single match he had. I'm just
Yeah.
about sure of that.
Pretty sure he trained Tommy Rich.
It's possible.
You know, Pat Patterson, I don't think people give him enough credit for the money he did draw in the WWF. And even before it was the WWF, you had the WWWF. Uh, just a tremendous Pat Patterson, and then what he did as far as the booking for Vince McMahon was also tremendous.
Well, and let's not forget that Pat and Ray Stevens were huge stars before they ever came to WWE.
Yeah,
WWF, because they sold out the Cow Palace on a weekly basis. They wrestled for AWA. They were substantial names by the time they even got up north.
Just tremendous too. Pat Patterson was so smooth in the ring, so smooth. January 21st at Madison Square Garden, Bob Backlund defended the WWF Heavyweight Championship against Ken Patera in a 25-minute bout that ended in chaos. After Patera tossed Backlund into the referee, Jack Lotz, which always would get hit in the knees a lot of times, and he would pass out. I don't, you know.
Yes, yes.
Another referee, Terry Terranova, sprinted down to the ringside and called for the timekeeper to ring the bell. After the decision was announced, Backlund and Patera brawled for several minutes until members of the locker room emerged to split the fight up. Ken Patera, we talked about him in Georgia where he didn't really get over there, but he was majorly over in the WWF. Why, Rodney? Why did Ken Patera? What was the difference between Atlanta and what he was doing with Bob Backlund?
Well, if I may, and Tommy, if you're watching, just turn it off right now. If you check out the match between Bob Backlund and Ken Patera, Backlund looked like he had been in a gym a few times. Tommy did not. In fact, when Tommy got in the ring with Patera, it was absolutely unbelievable that Tommy Rich could do any kind of offense against Ken Patera, being that he was in tremendous condition, uh, whereas Tommy was doing the Ric Flair training in the bar. That was basically, in my opinion, that was basically it. You had a super athlete against someone that didn't even look like an athlete. To be honest with you, I think it made Tommy look bad. In fact, and then you had a different style. Ken Patera did not work the style as Tommy would have worked with Buzz Sawyer or the Superstar. He moved well, but not like the Superstar or a Buzz for sure.
Jack Ken Patera in the WWF and Bob Backlund. Everybody can say whatever they want to say about Bob Backlund. He sold out Madison Square Garden more times than even Bruno Sammartino sold it out. Uh, you can't say nothing bad about Bob. Bob drew a lot of money in the WWF. People will go back now and say, well, they'll say the same thing about Hulk Hogan, but there's a proof in it that these people, Hulk Hogan, Bob Backlund, Bruno Sammartino, all sold out Madison Square Garden so many times. Uh, what's happened to the history of people saying, well, Bob Backlund wasn't a good champion?
Well, I think maybe it was because his greatest success was there in WWE. So maybe that's just what people pigeonhole him as only being the champion there for a certain amount of time. But you're right, Bob. There's always that saying, you got to be the right person in the right place at the right time, and Bob was there. But it wasn't luck that put him in that position. He worked hard to get there. Was he the most greatest personality? No, he wasn't. But he appealed. Those fans understood him. There was nobody in that crowd, or not many, that could have stood up and cut a lasting interview, that would grab people's attention. Bob was not known for being able to talk. Bob was known for getting in that ring and making everything he did look legitimate.
Yeah.
And that's why he was world champion. That's why he drew. And I think a lot of territories missed great opportunities with him because they had this set image in mind of what they wanted their top babyface guys to be.
Yeah,
And the
I agree.
way and the way that Backlund was produced, again, Cody, if you're watching, you might want to turn this off. Um, might want to just here's the thing: Bob Backlund was always the underdog in every single match, just about he
Mhm.
went against. Whether it was against, as we'll see, whether it's against Ken Patera, He always looked like he was the underdog. He always came into the match as an underdog, but every single time was able to overcome the odds. Every single match, he was able to overcome the odds, whether it had been against Hulk Hogan or Sergeant Slaughter or whoever, Killer Khan, or whoever it might be at the time. They would build him up, and it looked like as Backlund was going in, this could be the end, whether it would be Stan Hansen or whoever. It was going to be the night that that he was going to lose the championship. Backlund's finished this time around, and every time Backlund would rise to the occasion. Totally different from Bruno Sammartino, but it was a formula that worked time and time again. And this is the case where, Backlund had an array of different opponents. All right, monsters pretty much to come in and face him. Whereas right now, Cody has no one. I mean, AJ Styles, nobody believed AJ Styles was going to beat Cody this time around. There was nobody out there. If you believe that, then I've got you some, I got some property I'd like to sell you. But nobody believed that AJ Styles was going to beat. But every single time Backlund was going into the match, he always come as the underdog. It looked like he's going against this monster. He's going to lose this time, but every single time he was able to come back and win and prevail.
And in this match, I'm pretty sure they came back with a cage match.
Sure.
But in this particular match, it also showed they made Bob Backlund show that he could fight you if you needed to, there needed to be a fight as well, which was good for them. On the 2nd of February edition of Championship Wrestling, Larry Zbyszko got his wish. 1 month they built to this match. To have a match with his mentor, Bruno Sammartino. As the scientific bout went on, Zbyszko grew frustrated, and he was outclassed by Sammartino. Zbyszko ended up on the outside, and Sammartino held the ropes open for Larry to return to the ring. Zbyszko snapped and laid boots into his mentor, then smashed a wooden chair over Bruno's head, leaving him a bloody mess. The crowd erupted in boos as Zbyszko continued his assault, and Sammartino was left laying, drenching the mat with his blood, and exited the ring on a stretcher. A truly shocking angle. It really was for that time frame, because if you think about it, probably was not done often in the WWE at that time. Now, I'm not saying today's standards it could happen every other week, but at that time people just wasn't just turning on people left and right. Or I was just wondering if anybody was.
Well, I mean, I think you said all that needs to be said. They turn too many times today. I think nobody can argue with that. You're absolutely right. And so
they've even got to the point where they don't put effort into a turn now.
No.
They just send a guy home for a month, and then you bring him back, and he's changed allegiances.
Other big news in February of 1980 is Vince McMahon Jr. and his wife Linda has formed Titan Sports Incorporated. This company will be used to promote the WWF wrestling events and ice hockey games. So he is on his way of purchasing. If he's not already purchased, but I don't think he has yet.
You've got to know that just by forming that company that he has in mind where he wants to go.
Yeah. The 18th of February, the Bob Backlund Ken Patera feud continued with another match at Madison Square Garden with Intercontinental Champion Pat Patterson as the referee. So no, they don't come back as in a cage match. Backlund won via countout in 15:38, much to the delight of the New York crowd. So this time they evidently let Ken Patera run away, or I don't know.
But this time he did not. He still hasn't beat him. He still has not beat Ken Patera yet, but he's still battling, still fighting.
And Rodney was talking about Tommy Rich. Austin Idol and Tommy Rich made their debuts in the famous arena on February 18th. This was their only appearance in the building. Tommy Rich, Austin Idol never.
That tells you how well they got over.
Hey, do you think this is available? Do you think this February 18th is available on on YouTube somewhere. I'd like to see if Tommy Rich and Austin Idol how they got kind of
Did they? I wonder.
is,
Did they work against each other in that on that card? Do you know?
I would say so because would it be 1980? Am I not right? Is that the time that he broke his leg?
I believe that's correct.
Would that have been 1980? Harley
That's
Yeah,
right.
Race,
that
Austin Idol broke his.
that was during the feud they had going on at the time.
So this would probably be there in the same time. So I'd like to see. I like if this is available, I want to see this. All right, now we'll look at one more thing, and then we'll wait to talk to March and April on the next video. But on February the 21st, Bruno Sammartino traveled to Amarillo. Now, what this has to do with WWF, I don't know. But he travels to Amarillo, Texas to team with his 19-year-old son, David. And he went over Mr. Pogo and Bob Morgan. I wonder if David would made friends there in Texas like he did everywhere else.
I'm sure he did.
What was it about David Sammartino that he just could not get along with people?
And now I got along with him great. I thought he was a great kid. He was very nice. He was stiff as a board, though. It
That
was
that might have led to his
yeah.
getting his
I
nose
mean,
busted.
and if you didn't appreciate being in the ring with somebody like that, you probably didn't like him. I know him and Joel Deaton had some of the best matches I had ever seen.
Is this in Rome, Georgia?
In Rome and several other places around that Ted
You
was running.
it's amazing though that David Sammartino, almost every territory he went to, he ended up getting into it with someone in some form or fashion. I know Les Thornton broke his. I don't know if he broke his nose, but I do know he busted his he busted his nose for whatever reason. I don't know why. But incredible
He
stuff.
he was. We talked about it a little bit, and he was like he was so tired of everybody putting him under his dad's shadow. He really wanted to be David Sammartino and not Bruno Jr. And
I
that
got
was how he was even introduced a lot of times was Bruno Jr.
Yeah, in
And
Georgia.
he just did not like that. He wanted to stand out on his own. Now David was another one that especially after he cut that weight off, he looked fantastic, and he could go, and his stuff looked solid, but he had no personality whatsoever.
Well, that is January, February, WWF. Stay tuned. On our next video, we'll talk about March and April 1980. Tremendous year for the WWF. All right. Do we have we built up any people on our?
I'm
Well,
not.
I don't know.
I haven't even looked.
Yes, there's plenty out there. Mr. Richard, Kevin Penley's on with us. Timothy Truitt. We've got some over there.
All right, let's go over there and let's see what people have got to say
Donnie
here.
Hatcher is back with us.
All right, Jeremy Richter. Let me see if I can put it up here so I can read it. Jeremy Richter, hello from Texas. What were some of your daddy's commandments and bottom lines he passed on to you regarding the business? He had so many, and he would tell you those very elegant most of the time.
Yes, with the use of several colorful metaphors.
Protecting the business was a
Absolute must.
was an absolute must, and they made it no bones. If you told anything that was going in the business, you get your tail whipped. I mean, that was and that was his kids. That was 10-year-old and 12-year-old Rodney and Brent. Wrestling 2 told us one time we were going to start riding and going some strips with him, and he was going to ride with us, and he brought us back to the back and said, "Now listen, I'm going to start making some trips. We're going to ride together." He says, "If you tell anybody who I am at any time, tell anybody what I look like, I will personally whip you myself." And those was his exact words. And you know what? We believed that was going to happen because I believe it would have. And our father would allow them to do it too. So
Yeah.
yeah, the wrestling business was just a completely different thing back then, wasn't it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And we had we knew exactly what he was talking about. We knew exactly what he was talking about, and we wouldn't have traded those trips for nothing.
He also would tell wrestlers, he would go back and he would say, you know, somebody have a bad match. He would go over there and he said, "Let me ask you a question." He says, "Would you pay to see that match you just had?" Probably not. He said, "Well, if you wouldn't, why do you think those people would?" He said, "People, you know that we're not going to draw next week because of that crappy match." And he didn't use crappy. All right. He would say, "There's nobody going to buy a ticket to come see that again." He said, "Now we're going to have to start all over again, but next time you're going to have a better match." He was very hard on guys when it came to having bad matches.
He sure was.
He just did not see, especially if you had the talent to do it. You know what I'm saying? If you had the talent, now if you didn't have the talent, sometimes he wouldn't say nothing to you. He just let it go by. But if he knew you had the talent and you just went out there and halfway done it, man, he was man.
Yeah.
Anything else, Roddy? Before we move on,
Go ahead.
are there any videos of Rodney wrestling the bear? Richard Hood, welcome back,
We
fellows.
have one. We did. There's several of them wrestling a bear. When I was growing up, there were several of those, and but the bear is no longer with us. I'm sorry to say. The Stephens got knocked out of him a long time ago.
Donnie Esther, woohoo, you're back. Yes, we are back. We always have some problems with our. On occasion, we have problems with getting on here. So, Flair is something else. Boy, he is. Let's see. Flair said he had a heart attack during his match, and doctors said the bottom half of his heart is black. How is he still alive? And you'd think he'd get away from bars in his condition.
Might be the only thing keeping him alive.
It might be.
He's preserved. He's pickled. Preserved.
Let's see, Tim. Where is Jimmy?
Jimmy Uso. They worked Angle a few weeks ago, and they hurt him
Yeah.
uh,
He's
Oh,
out for a little while.
I
solo.
don't watch the show at all, so I can't
Well,
tell you
all I
what
can
goes
tell you,
on.
you've missed
Did
absolutely nothing.
did y'all watch the pay-per-view this past
Nah.
weekend?
I watched clips of it.
The matches were not bad. They weren't stellar by any stretch of the imagination, but that crowd, if you don't watch it for anything else, watch that crowd and how they were into everything. I guarantee you, Jay Uso will never have that kind of reaction anywhere else that he had that night. It was, I mean, they blew the roof off for him.
When they were in Puerto Rico, if you go back and watch the Puerto Rico and you look at all the people that were wrestled in the Puerto Rico company, man, them people were over. But
Yeah,
then they took them and brought them back to to maybe Alabama or something, and then it was crickets when he comes out, and that's incredible how over they were there. But it shows, I think, what wrestling has always been about. It's always been about the territories, and that some in some instances their style of wrestling didn't get over. I mean, there were people that got over in Alabama but couldn't get over in Georgia for nothing, and it's a different style. I don't think that's the reason wrestling's very 2 million people watching it, because it doesn't appeal to a whole wide audience anymore. Back when WWF started expanding, look at the people they had. They had the Junkyard Dog that was over in Louisiana, so they got those wrestling fans to watch it. They had Dusty Rhodes. They had all these people that they could bring in from the territories from that territory day, and those territory fans watched that show. It's, hey, Ted DiBiase's on there. He was over in Georgia. He was over in Louisiana, so it helped that. I don't know. I don't think they understand that every state is almost different. Wrestling fans are different. This guy, he said, "I know you guys." Timothy Tripp. Hasso is with us. And he says, "Hi everyone. Bowen, Don Bowen is with us as well. Uh, Victor Nash is with us. Richard Hood, the student versus the teacher, which worked very well. Drew a lot of crowds everywhere. Sell out crowds everywhere. Everywhere they put that match, it drew.
It was a good story to tell. I mean, Wrestling Two and Magnum TA in Louisiana. You know,
Yeah,
man, great story.
yeah, and that's the reason it drew. No, Senior was still in charge. I thought he was because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was still there when I know he was still there when Andy Kaufman wanted to come in. Because he told him no, I'm not going to have that because he did not want Hulk Hogan to go do the Rocky movie. That's the reason he left. Tony Atlas and Hulk Hogan had a nice run back in the WWF. Great, some great photographs of that match online that you. I guess it was in the. I guess it was in the magazines. Missy Hyatt. Let's see. Wait a minute. Missy Hyatt actually educated me via YouTube that their very first meeting was in Dothan, I believe she said. The meeting for who? I wonder.
Hogan and
Yeah,
Andre.
Oh,
it's
okay.
very possible. Yeah, they were in the stadium. They put that match in the stadium in
Hey,
Dothan.
did y'all know? And I don't know if this is true or not, but we talked about Eddie Mansfield a couple of weeks ago. Did Did y'all know that there's a possibility that Missy Hyatt was married to him?
Well, we all make
It's,
mistakes.
I mean, is this true? Can anybody tell me if this is true? I mean, yeah, because everything on the internet is true. So I don't. Let's see, Victor Nash. Hello, all here on Facebook. Hope all is well. Victor, everything's going well. Lou Albano didn't hide blading himself in front of the fans. No, he
Oh
didn't, did
no,
he?
no, he did not.
Probably in the South he'd have been fired.
Yeah.
He probably wouldn't have worked. It would have worked in the South. But for some reason, Vince McMahon really did like him uh, for whatever reason.
Well, I think he did a lot during that transition period, and that was one thing his dad asked if there were certain people, Gorilla, him, Pat Patterson. He wanted him to keep. Blackjack Lanza was another one, and so instead of just keeping them long enough, he realized, until he fully took over and his dad couldn't say nothing, and he then fire them. He found out that those guys really were the heart and soul of the business part of it. That he could trust them to do what he wanted done. That their loyalty had been to his father, but now that he was in charge, their loyalty was to him.
I'm pretty sure Vince when he bought his dad's part because he didn't give it to him.
Oh no,
He had to buy. Did he buy Gorilla Monsoon's points in that company at the same time?
I can't
Because I know he had.
remember if it was at that time or a few years later.
Because I know
Um,
eventually he buys his
yeah,
points.
eventually he buys everybody out, and yet they all still have a job.
Yeah, Gorilla was so good though. I always liked Gorilla Monsoon because he'd always get all over the referees. That blind referee didn't know what he was doing. Blah blah. I mean, he'd get until his son
Yeah,
Joey Morella started refereeing, and then he stopped doing it. He didn't mind putting the heat on him until his son was there, and he thought, well, maybe I should do that no more. Must know Hogan slammed Andre. Yeah, and that happened. I think that
no,
happened back
no,
in the.
slam the Andre statue.
Oh, slam the Andre statue. I got you. Let's see. Do you think? I'm trying to get that. Do you think Archie Goldie was a better wrestler than Ben the Stomper?
Well, we never know because he was always a stomper.
Yeah,
Um, I really don't know. I really don't know, and I don't see Archie as anything but the Stomper myself.
Of course, then
You
again,
know,
back in those days, you had to be able to work. You
yeah.
had to be able to.
And Archie
Archie
had a
was
style.
incredible. Yeah.
He certainly had a style, and I don't even though in some places he worked as Archie Golding, and the style was still the same.
He lived in Morristown. But do you know that he would run from Morristown to Knoxville, Tennessee and back to Morristown every day.
Yeah, it was a bicycle.
Every day he would do that run.
It was
Now that's incredible.
big time in the bicycle.
I mean, it's just I can't believe. Dutch Mantel did a lot of cardio. You would see him out early in the mornings running. And cardio. Listen, if you're going to be a wrestler and you don't have good cardio, you might as well just give it up. And they get mad at people because they have them do that. Those little whatever them things called. They have them, do, but
Those drills.
those little drills. But that's more important at the beginning than any really having the cardio. We watched old Coco Beware he'd jump on a chair and jump back down, jump up in a chair and jump back down, and he would do this for about 30 minutes. That it was me and Rodney looked at it because we worked out there at at a place in Louisiana, and while he was doing those jumping up there, we were outside throwing up.
If Ricky Ferrero's gym there in
Yeah,
Pineville.
he had us. He worked you to death over Ricky Fur, and didn't turn on his air conditioner either. Bobby Fulton was in there too, and he complained and said, "Buddy, you need to turn on some air conditioning." And he told him, he said, "Listen." He was some kind of foreigner. And he said, "Listen, you don't understand. Your sweat's bad good for you. So you'll be okay. You'll be okay." That's what he told him. I think he left. I think Bobby said he's going to go to a place that has some air conditioning. Because you're talking about Louisiana, very hot there, very humid in Louisiana. My thoughts about Bob was you had to follow in the babyface steps of Bruno and take over the reins from a super charisma Billy Graham. In the AWA, he would have been received much better. He could have got received too much better than he was there because he does have a lot of sellouts. Let's see, was that before? Was that before or after Larry won the Mid South title? Is he talking about Larry Zabisco?
Yeah, I don't
I don't
remember
think
him
he ever
holding the
had the Mid
mid
South
south.
title, did he?
I don't remember it. Not to say he
Yeah,
didn't. I just don't remember it.
yeah, he could have. Eddie Graham wanted Steve Keirn to be WWE. Yes, he did. They were actually going to put the title on him, but for some reason, at the last minute, they decided against it because Eddie Graham and Vince McMahon Sr. got along great. I think he even had didn't he even have a home close to Eddie Graham.
Hmm.
So Mark. Let's see. How would you say that name? Val.
Valverde.
All right, thank you, because I
Valverde.
cannot say that.
Valverde. I hope I got it right, Mark.
Kevin,
Welcome.
how did trainers? Let's see. How did trainers get bears to understand kayfabe? I don't think they did.
No, you
You
just
know, we
if
were.
you were smart, you would go feed that bear as much as you could find, like 20 hot dogs before you'd have to wrestle it, and then it'd be happy and lazy.
They had like a little grizzly bear, and what was the guy's name? Rip Tyler. Rip
Yeah.
Tyler had the bear, and this was 1987, and Dutch Mantel, he said, he'd always say he had previous bear fighting experience, and he didn't need another bear fighting experience, but Wendell Cooley did. And Wendell hurt his knee during that point in time, and Tracy Smothers had to work against the bear, which he did very good. Tracy did really good against the bear. But I remember them telling me this, "Hey, come over here and pet the bear." I was in Birmingham at the State Fair Arena, and I said, "Yeah, I'll come over there. Yeah, I'm gonna get over there." And the moment I got over there, that bear grabbed a hold of me by my feet, and knocked me down to the ground, and started taking his paw. And that thing could have killed me. I didn't probably weigh 140 pounds. And I looked at that girl that brought me over there. It was the daughter, I think, of Rip Tyler. And I said, "Now, why would you want to do that?" She said, "I just thought it would be funny." I didn't think it was too funny. Let's see. Richard Hood is with us. He says, "What's up, Don Hester?" Uh, I was thinking, were you guys in Georgia during Black Saturday? No, I believe we were in Mid South Wrestling, wasn't we? Wasn't we in Louisiana?
I believe that's correct.
I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure. They had some of the worst shows. WWF had some of the worst shows I've ever seen in my life in that TBS studio. I
Awful.
don't know if I've seen bad wrestling that bad in my time. It was horrible. The only time it was ever good, Roddy Piper was on there, and they let him pretty well have the whole show, and he'd be out there completely almost the whole show. But the rest of it is crazy. Wrestling is subjective, and it is. But you can't say nothing about Bob Backlund. He drew a lot of money. He was over for that time. But people try to rewrite history of Hulk Hogan, and if you go back and look at Hulk Hogan's career, and you look at the gates compared to him being on the cards and him not being on the cards during that time frame that Hulkamania was running wild, Hulk Hogan did draw a lot of more money than the rest of the people on the cards. I'll take a large pepperoni pizza and a drunk nature. Oh man, he just keeps on making himself look good. Hey, let me ask you. There's another one on there, Jack, and he's fighting some dude in a bar. Is that a work, or is that was that a shoot?
I heard it turned out to be a work.
Okay, I
Because
saw that.
wasn't that guy like a football player or something?
Yes,
NFL? Yeah.
which he would have just he'd have beat Flair
Yeah.
senseless.
Flair was not
It might
known
have put a little
for,
sense in him right there.
yeah, he was not known for having successful barroom interactions of a violent nature.
Zabisco said that Lou used to bust Vince Jr.'s stones hard, and is why he didn't like him. Respected him, but didn't like him. Yeah, I think he was kind of. I think he looked at him as a kid. I really believe he did. Let's see. Sorry, it has already been said. Internet issues earlier. Tonight's Dark Side of the Ring focuses on Black Saturday. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think Nick Patrick said he was going to be on there. He was going to be a part of that. Let's see. Hey, if they don't give all the credit to the Briscoes, they ain't doing a good show there. They were behind every big thing that
I
ever happened in wrestling.
and I think Gerald's supposed to be on the show.
Do you think when the split happened between Ann Gunkel and Georgia Championship Wrestling, it hurt the credibility of Wrestling Atlanta? I don't think it did, because didn't both companies drop?
They did in the beginning, but as time wore on, the talent started to leave Ann Gunkel and start going to Georgia. That is overwhelmed with the new talent.
I don't think. I don't think that. I don't think it. They didn't do anything like they did in Knoxville. For instance, they didn't go on TV and say, "Well, I'll beat so and so" or anything like that. I don't think they did any of those things. But at the same time, Thunderbolt Patterson was running a wrestling show there during the same time period. So like, you just got to figure that one out. Alfred Allen. There is a newspaper article about Missy and Eddie being married in Columbus, Georgia. So I guess they were married. Well, you learn something new every day.
She
Let's
likes them
see.
Eddies.
I don't even know what this is. Joe Hendry, the Deadpool of pro wrestling. Who is that? Is that somebody I need to look up?
I don't know. I'm, if they're not in the business, I don't keep up with people.
Bob Backlund would run up the stairs to warm up. Yes, he'd go up and down, and then go in there and wrestle for 30 minutes. He was something else. Bob Backlund was something else. They said he could work and he could go 40 minutes and come back to the dressing room and wouldn't even breathe hard. I mean, that was you let somebody wrestle 40 minutes now. You might have to get them a ambulance to pick them up to take them back to the motel. Let's see here. Let's see.
Ilya Dragunov will have great feuds with Gunther, Gable, and Braun. And I agree. I like that kid. He's really good. Very intense.
What are your memories on Southwest Championship Wrestling? Steve Stacks. That was the guy's name, wasn't it? Steve
Yeah.
Stacks. For that era, for that time frame, I thought Steve Stacks really did a good job for that show. But they were, and if you go back and look at the grapplers with Don Carson against Ricky Morton and Ken Lucas, great matches, tremendous stuff, and drawing pretty good crowds there with that. Uh, Bobby Jaggers, and I still remember that Bobby Jaggers getting Cornette,
Bucket,
poo poo.
bucket pig.
We need to get Rudy Gonzalez on here sometime because that's where Rudy started. He was the ring boy for several years and then refereed and finally wound up wrestling. I think he sheep herders was his first match.
Yeah, they had some
Well, nobody.
tremendous talent. Rico went through
Yeah.
Southwest. I mean, uh, Nick Bockwinkel made his appearance down there. I mean, they really did. They brought the who's who to Southwest.
Yeah.
Hey, you know
Wahoo
what though?
McDaniel.
Nobody liked old Tully Blanchard during that point in time, though, did they? Everybody that ever talks about him during that time says he was worthless during that
Yeah,
point in
he.
time.
But look at those matches. I mean, look at those matches. He and Gino Hernandez tag
Oh
team,
yeah,
tremendous stuff.
we'll have to talk about South. Yeah, I enjoyed it because I mean, I don't
Great
know how long
stuff.
was it on USA Network? Maybe a year.
Yeah, maybe a year. Yeah, but they had some really good stuff. Adrian Street was there. Uh, uh, Casey,
Yeah.
Scott Casey was huge. Bruiser Bob Sweetan. I mean, they really had a lot of great wrestlers come through. Dick
Tommy
Slater.
Tommy Rich was going out there and making some appearances.
Yeah. Does he mean when Zabisco held the Georgia belt? Maybe it might
Yeah,
be. That would have been sometime in 1983, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah. That was good. And he was a national champion. Remember, he tried to buy the belt from Killer Brooks. Then they told him you can't buy the belt. I thought that was pretty decent stuff.
I went to one of the WWF studio shows at TBS. Well, I
Did
feel
you
sorry for you.
did you fall asleep?
Now I fell asleep a few times at the
Oh, that
TBS
was
studios.
they tried to do is put as they put as little as wrestlers as they possibly could get on that show for a 2 hour show. Poor old I think two and Les Thornton wrestled for 30 minutes on that show, I believe.
I don't know how many times I fell asleep and fell in chairs there at that place. I don't. There's many times, and old Gordon would always say the same thing. Could you please quit doing that? He said, I'm trying to do commentary over here because I fell right in front of him one time because we were sitting right in front of the monitor, and I was leaned backwards, and the monitor was on wheels, and it wasn't locked down, and the monitor moved, and when it did, I went down with it. that's, that's things I do. I did during that time. No wonder they thought I was an idiot. Kevin Penley, when a wrestler wrestles for old 7 days a week, how many days would they drop? When a okay, what do you,
Would they do independent shows during that time?
no, there wasn't such thing in the territory days as a wrestler working for a territory going to an independent show. So
No.
you wouldn't. Well, you could have, but you wouldn't have worked there. You wouldn't have worked nowhere else. Jerry Oates must be on here with us. Let's see. Richard Hood. Do you remember Big Red as Voodoo Malumba? I don't remember him on that.
I think I only saw him once. It was all right.
Jamie Richards said, looking good, Jack Lord. And Charlie Smith was one of the referees on the WWF TBS show. Yes, he was. All right, Rodney, final comments, and then we'll get off of
Oh,
here
I
for
had
now.
a great opportunity this week. Someone has put together this awesome collection of Ernie Ladd interviews. This is worth looking it up. Ernie Ladd, one of the great talkers of all time. There was also the one where he and standing there with Vince McMahon Jr. and he said, "You'd like to do something to me, wouldn't you? You would like to try something with me, wouldn't you, Mr. TV announcer? You'd like to try something. You need to put on a few more pounds, and then you can see what you can do with Ernie Ladd." This tremendous stuff talking about Junkyard Dog. There was a bunch of stuff from when he was in Mid Atlantic, talking about Junkyard Dog and Rufus R. Jones. There's a great match with Rufus R. Jones and Ernie Ladd from I guess the summer show from Greensboro. Tremendous match. Tremendous show. Main event was a cage match, United States Championship, Dick Slater against Greg Valentine. I think they just posted it. Just a tremendous card. Dory Funk Jr. against Tully Blanchard. This it was a Boogie Woogie tour, or Boogie Woogie bash, or something to that degree. And it was a tremendous show. And like I said, it was a pleasure to watch Ernie Ladd do his thing. It really was. Ernie, one of my favorites. And then of course, somebody put a lot together with Thunderbolt Patterson. Just tremendous stuff, and I enjoyed watching it. I want to talk about just real quick, if I could. We had an opportunity to take an outing out to Rome, Georgia, down to the arena down there for NAWA wrestling. I have to admit that was a tremendous atmosphere, a family atmosphere. So we got the opportunity to see again families coming together and watching a show. Just a tremendous opportunity, and I enjoyed it. Teenagers, preteens in the back dancing to the music. Just a tremendous family atmosphere, and I was very impressed by that, the whole setup down there. And then it was a pleasure to be able to get down there and see what looked to be a tremendous family outing. And the one thing that I noticed, of course, we don't allow it in our shows, but they let kids wrestle in the ring. And the leg slapping, as we have talked about on this program multiple times, has gotten so prevalent in the matches that now when kids are playing wrestling in the ring, they're slapping their legs. Absolutely disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. And the WWE has been full blown leg slapping out the wazoo. Now it's just it's embarrassing. It absolutely is embarrassing. But then when the fact is that when your own fans are catching it, and now the kids are catching it, and they're imitating them in the ring, it's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing. Other than that, but yeah, Richard was talking about under Ernie Ladd calling Thunderbolt Patterson Thundermouth. Yeah, he was. There will never be another Ernie Ladd. There'll never be another Thunderbolt Patterson, and this never will be. This again, just give them the mic and they can entertain you. Ernie Ladd and Thunderbolt Patterson. But that's all I
Hey,
have.
Victor, thank you so much for the stars. We really do appreciate it. It'll pay for all these new cameras and stuff that we got, and when you promote wrestling, sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want to. You lose money, so we really appreciate it. Uh,
Let me say one more thing. Since you mentioned one more thing, I know you want me to say one more thing, Eric. We've been saying all along that Tony Khan would become part of his show, and he did exactly what we said he was going to do. Now, let me be very clear. This is different than when Bill Watts or Jerry Jarrett or Eddie Graham did it. They had a name and they had a way of wrestling. They could wrestle. They were already over. They were established. Tony Khan doesn't have any such thing. The only thing Tony's going to do is when he comes back, he's going to end up managing the Elite. That's the only thing he has opportunity, because there's nothing that he can do as far as the ring. There's nothing he can do. He is not a Bill Watts or a Ron Fuller or Eddie Graham. He's just not. He's not a Jerry Jarrett. He's just not.
Well, I look forward to that first pay per view that they do where he actually gets in the ring. I think they're going to call it "I Feared for My Life."
Oh, I want to tell everyone that we will be coming back with the next set of tapings. So many things happen, and we'll be in August. August, and I don't know that I can't remember the date right now, but it's sometime in August, and we'll be coming back for our next tapings, and we'll do be in what 3 or 4 more before the end of the year, and then 2025 be looking for more that we'll be doing in 2025 because we
Oh, there's
always said
Michael Ball.
2000 we always said 2024 is going to be the trial time for us, and 2025 will be when we set it. And if you've not went to Rome, Georgia, I think the show is this Saturday night, isn't it?
It is. It is.
It's at the old. It used to be called Dillard's Music Park. Is it still called Dillard's
It's
Music
yeah,
Park?
still called Dillard's Music Park.
Dillard's Music Park. Get You'll enjoy it. I think what tickets? I think ringside seats was the front row, which will probably
It's
also go down.
front row is $12. General admission is 10.
So get out there. Ricky and all those folks are fine people, and you'll be getting to see some old good wrestling in Rome, Georgia. Dillard's Music Park. Just look it up on your phone, and it'll take you right there. Jack, also you've got something coming. Another show, Pell City.
June 1st, Saturday, June 1st, we're going to be back at Celebrations in Pell City, and we ran out of chairs at the last show, so we got to find more chairs to bring into the event because we used every one that was in the building, which is a good problem to have. Uh,
Maybe you
it,
should
it,
say bring your own chair. Maybe that's
yeah, it was a really great show, and we've got an even bigger card lined up for this next one. But go to Southern Legacy Wrestling on Facebook, and all the information is there. Tickets are only available at the door, but we'll get you in.
all right, folks. Thank
Victor he said he thinks that Tony Khan is about to hire a GM. Hopefully, it's going to be Scott Demore. And of course, we know the more the merrier.
Well, now
well.
Scott is fixing to open up his own promotion back
That's what
up in
I saw as
Canada,
well. That's what I saw as well.
so. I mean, I guess they could do business together, obviously, because Tony likes to, open that door that's not only
Forbidden.
forbidden, but maybe it should have been nailed shut at
That's
times.
Uh, Michael Barr, hello. How are you doing? I see you just came up. All right, people, we're going to get off of here, and we will see everybody next week right here on Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. We're going to be talking once again about March and April. Some great stuff happened in the WWF in 1980, and we'll be talking about that. And we'll see everybody next week right here on Pro Wrestling Inside and Out.